Let's talk about eternity and what that even means. We tend to misdefine it by saying that it has to do with time, like lasting a long time or forever. But eternity transcends time. Watch. Here comes this moment. Get ready for it. Here it comes. It's almost here. And there it went. Now, that moment right there can only be that moment, and no other moment can be it. And in that way, it is eternal. So to live in the moment, in the now, is to touch the eternal. My name is Casey Cuny, and I teach mythology. But really, I teach teenagers. And I teach teenagers everything from how to live in the moment, to the power of growth mindset, to how to use rhetorical strategies to write a great paragraph or to get a date. And I would like to invite you into my class today. This is going to be my class, and I've got a lesson for you. And the lesson is that you are all heroes on your own journey. And I want to challenge you today to think of your life as a grand adventure filled with trials and with triumphs. Now, the oldest myth is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was inscribed on those clay tablets in 2700 BC. Gilgamesh was a mighty king, but the death of his best friend and his brother Enkidu drove him to leave his city on a crazy quest for immortality. Now, in the middle of his journey, he found himself in the middle of a 36-mile dark tunnel. As he trudged his way through the tunnel, he could see nothing in front of him, nothing behind him, or all around. About halfway through, he screamed out in agony. He was losing his mind, but he kept trudging forward, and he kept trudging forward until finally, there in the distance, was the rose color of dawn. And eventually, he emerged out of that tunnel into a beautiful garden filled with jewel-bearing trees and a pond. And the beautiful, wonderful god Shamash came down from the sky, the sun god, to talk with him. From the cave to the garden, from darkness to light, from isolation to companionship. Joseph Campbell, the famous mythology scholar, called these the pairs of opposites. Time is constantly moving, so we have to constantly deal with these pairs of opposites, from hot, cold, past, future, loneliness, love. As Campbell said, though, put your mind in the middle and recognize that they are both temporary and necessary. But we tend to go to war with our opposites. We tend to put ourselves on one side and judge the other. So, for instance, when we're feeling sad, we judge it and we sit there in it and we go, why? Why am I sad? There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with this. And then when we're ever in joy, we tend to think, oh, normal. Finally, I'm not that. But put your mind in the middle. And if we put our minds in the middle, then when you are in that pit of sadness, you might be able to better endure it because you'll be mindful that it is temporary. And then when you are finding yourself in moments of joy, because you also recognize that it is temporary, you might actually appreciate it more. And they only exist together. I mean, think about it. Could you ever really appreciate and understand a true sense of belonging if you hadn't already really appreciated and experienced loneliness? Now, living in the past brings regrets, and living in the future creates anxieties. The hero learns to live in the moment. The hero learns to transcend the opposites by enduring the tough times and learning from them and cherishing the good. That was me at my 8th grade continuation night. I was 13 years old when I was diagnosed with bone cancer. At the time of that picture, I'd had about 5 chemotherapies, and I'd had a huge surgery to replace all the bones in my left leg with titanium. I was just months away from heading off to Battle Mountain High School. Class of 94, let's go! And there are some old people in here. Okay, good. And I was just months away from getting off to high school in Vail, Colorado, where I was born and raised, up in the mountains, big ski resort. I grew up skiing. I started skiing at the age of 3. And months before this picture was taken, I was actually training for downhill and for slalom, and it was my dream to ski in the Olympics. At the time of that picture, though, the doctors were giving me a 50-50 chance that I would survive the year. So to be here with you today, 35 years later, is very humbling. Now, I could do an entire talk on the hero's journey, but the story of Gilgamesh perfectly illustrates the structure: departure, initiation, and return. After the tunnel, Gilgamesh realizes, after a little bit longer in the journey, that he can't get immortality, and that what he needs to do is return home and inscribe his story on those clay tablets so that his people can learn from him and become wise. Odysseus departs, goes on a crazy adventure, and returns home a changed person. Luke Skywalker only leaves Tatooine after the loss of his Uncle Owen, and he later returns a Jedi. Thousands of myths and hero stories from all around the world, and they are all the same blueprint, from the Aborigines to the Vikings to the Navajo. And the reason is because the hero's journey really is the human story. Now, I lost the ability to ski after the cancer, and it drove me to leave the beautiful Vail Valley. And it led me on a crazy journey. And through my pain and through my darkness, I found my passion and my purpose, which is teaching. And through the pursuit of that purpose, it led to this crazy honor of being named the 2024 California Teacher of the Year, which then led to an invitation to return home to Battle Mountain High School and speak to the students there about all that I had learned. That's crazy, isn't it? We are all heroes on our own journey. Here's another hero, the sun goddess Amaterasu from Japan, the land of the rising sun. Amaterasu was weaving at her loom when her mischievous brother, Susanoo no Mikoto, threw a horse into the weaving hall, and it shocked her, and she pricked her finger on the loom. And at the pain and the suddenness of that and the sight of the blood, she thought, to heck with this, I'm done with life. And she left, and she went in the cave of heaven and shut the door. This meant the end of the world. There was no more sun. All of the other gods gathered outside in the tranquil river of heaven, right outside the cave, and tried to figure out what to do. And one of them started dancing, and they all started cheering and laughing. Well, Amaterasu heard this inside the cave of heaven and thought, why are they all cheering with me gone? And she opened the door just to peek a little bit, and they were waiting. They had set up a mirror, and when she saw the mirror, she was amazed, and she took a step out of the cave. Another god took her by the hand and led her out, while another god tied a rope of straw called the Shimenawa across the entrance, so that she can never permanently go back in the cave again. She can, though, at night stretch that Shimenawa as the sun sets, but every morning rises again to come out back for another day. Now, life is going to hurt. You're going to prick your finger. This profession is filled with pricks on the finger. And there will be times when you want to go into that cave, you want to get away from life, and you want to get away from teaching and from education. But that's okay, because the myth is telling us that you should go in the cave from time to time. You should check out for a bit, go for a hike, read, go for a walk, listen to music, just take a nap. The Shimenawa represents rebirth, because you do then have to come back out and participate in this life with all of its struggle and with all of its pain. And how do we do that? Well, if we look at Amaterasu, what led her out of the cave? What did she see in the mirror that led her out? It wasn't herself. It was her reflection. And that's different. She saw her inner purpose, what she could give to the world, reflected back at her. And for her, that was her light. Now, I passionately believe that each and every one of you has something unique that only you can give to this world. And if you don't come out of that cave and you don't shine that on us, the world will be a little bit dimmer. And how do we find that purpose? We look within. I mean, this whole honor that you've all received from your states, it can mess with your purpose a little bit. It can get in your head. It's so important to ground yourself, to go into the cave, stretch the Shimenawa, and always check back in. And when you do, I think you will find your purpose and keep that purpose pure and true. Now, I know many of you might be thinking, oh, this is just metaphorical. Life, my profession, hurt a lot more than just a prick of the finger. And I understand. I want to share a little story with you. Um, at 13 years old, from that picture, the day before I was supposed to head in for chemotherapy, I had just decided I couldn't do it anymore, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And I went out on the ledge of our fourth story apartment building, and I climbed up on the ledge with the intent to jump. And my sister, my 9-year-old sister Jessica, found me and started screaming for my parents. Now, at that point, I had decided I wouldn't do it. When I looked down, all I saw was dark pavement, and I just saw nothingness, and I didn't want that. So my parents came, and of course, they freaked out, and they sent me to every therapist you could imagine. And I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, but I do really regret that I would not talk to those therapists. I was so stigmatized against it that I literally, with one gentleman, I sat there for an entire hour like this, and I wouldn't even say a word. What I did was I bottled it all up, and it did mess with me in my late teens and early 20s. It messed with me emotionally. Now, I go to therapy every Saturday, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's like getting a brain massage. I always feel better afterwards. I'm always like, oh, I feel a little better now. And he has really helped me come to understand what I was feeling back then and what I was going through. And I share this story all the time with my students. And I wanted to share it with you because just that if there's one person who has also felt this way, I just want you all to know that you're not alone. It's completely understandable. And what I've learned is that in those moments, it isn't that one doesn't want to live. It's that we want the pain to stop. What I tell my students is that choice won't make the pain stop. That choice will actually make the pain expand to encompass people all around you, people you didn't even realize cared about you. So the key is to focus on the pain. And the key is to verbalize it. We now have new research from MRI studies called affect labeling. And when you verbalize an emotion, we see the electrical intensity in the amygdala, the emotional center. It actually dampens. So when you've talked to a friend and said, I'm just angry about something, and you felt like it took the edge off, well, we see it happening in the brain now. So verbalize your emotions. Don't be like me and bottle it all up. Let it out. Because we all need help. We all need help. Every hero needs help. Amaterasu needed help. I needed help the day after that, sitting on the ledge, and I was in the hospital for the chemotherapy. I was sitting there in the room, and all of a sudden, in walked my grandfather, my hero. He had heard what had happened, and he flew from Florida to Colorado, same day. Everyone left the room. It was just me and him. And he sat down at my bedside, and he took out of his bag one of his silver stars. He had 2 silver stars from World War II. And he gave me the silver star, and he said, "You're braver than I ever was." At that point, I couldn't give up. I couldn't give up because he believed in me. My hero believed in me. So I couldn't give up for him. So we all need help. Don't be afraid to reach for it. Again, remember, Amaterasu needed a hand to get her out of the cave. And you might need a hand to bring you out so that you can see the reflection that might have been a little bit too dark for you to see. We are all heroes on our own journey. The life that you are experiencing and will experience has never been experienced that way in the history of the universe. And it never will be experienced the way you will experience it ever again. And in that way, it is eternally yours. That 13-year-old kid, he wished every night that his life would go back to the way it was. He was bald, no eyebrows. He'd been on those crutches for 2 more years. He had no idea that he was about to endure 9 more surgeries. But he also had no idea that his journey and his adventure had already begun. And he had no idea that one day he would be grateful that he went through all of that, because it would lead him to this moment shared with all of you. Now, they told me that I would never live. They told me that I would never walk again. They told me that due to the chemotherapy, I would never have children. They even told me that I would never ride a bike again. Don't ever give up on yourself. Now, you may not think you're a hero yet, but I see it. I see it in each and every one of you. And I hope that in me, you see your reflection shining back.